Recognizing the vulnerabilities that our students from low-income communities face, it's important that we optimize the learning environment for our students, and that's the focus of this module. Optimizing the environment means both your therapy area and the classroom. Be sure to collaborate and share your knowledge with each other. If you're a teacher, share what's working well in your room with those therapists and vice versa. The first way to optimize the learning environment is to minimize the visual distractions. So many students from low SES communities have attention needs. And so whenever possible, in my classroom, I would like to create situations to help them build that ability to attend over increasingly larger amounts of times, whether that was creating some sort of a library carrel with folders, or perhaps even creating separate areas in the room that had fewer distractions. A dedicated area where maybe you're not hanging chart paper, where a student could go if they really wanted to have a minimal distraction workplace. It's also important to think about the noise that's happening in your teaching environment. How can we optimize the sound in the room for our students so that they don't get distracted? It's actually studied that students from low-income communities have a higher incidence of ear infections, otitis media. And so given that that already impacts a student's hearing and can create vulnerabilities that impact language development and certainly then the trickle-down effects to reading, we need to combat that and think about ways through FM units or other situations, even just to ensure that windows are closed when possible, and other strategies to minimize the amount of noise coming into the classroom. It's also important to build in movement breaks. All students will benefit, but especially those students who have a reduced attention span. So remember that a child's attention span actually correlates to chronological age until about age 7. So if you're teaching kindergarten, first, second, please be thoughtful about how long your mini lesson is. We want to make sure that every 5, 6, 7 minutes, students can get up and do some sort of a transition or a break. Even a turn and talk will allow them to sort of have a break and refocus. An interesting one, and I would say this goes not just for your students, but for your own learning. Hydration is key. Inadequate hydration can actually not just lead to thirst, but headaches and reduced cognitive functioning. So it's crucial that we give students ample opportunity to stay hydrated. And perhaps that even just means leaving a water bottle and permitting them to have it on their desk. So often there are rules against when you can go to the water fountain or not being allowed to have water on your desk, but really, if it's going to help the brain function, perhaps that's not the best rule to put in place. So when we want to create an optimal scenario for whole brain learning, what we really need to focus on is reducing stress. Too many of our youngsters come to school carrying heavy burdens. Sometimes they're not even directly aware, but they carry the stress indirectly, knowing that perhaps their family is going through something stressful. And so whatever we can do in the classroom to reduce those stress levels only increases the optimal learning for the brain. So through reducing that stress, we can increase memory skills and really create a better scenario for learning. So the connection here is that children who are under high levels of stress have higher levels of cortisol. So what can we do, knowing that cortisol can actually reduce the amount of functioning brain cells? And so what we need to do is figure out, how do we reduce those cortisol levels? How do we reduce the stress, even just within our own classroom environment? So my wonderful colleagues who are occupational therapists shared some great strategies with me that I want to share with you. One is called the cross crawl, because we know that aerobic exercise can actually reduce stress. So this activity where you're bringing an elbow across your body and lifting up your opposite knee and going back and forth actually stimulates both sides of the brain while simultaneously bringing new oxygen to the body, reducing stress, reducing those cortisol levels. So you're not only giving a movement break that we just discussed, but you're actually optimizing the brain for learning by reducing those cortisol levels through aerobic exercise. Deep breathing can do the same thing. We see increasing numbers of yoga programs coming into school, and it's really exciting because it not only helps students with attention and focus, but has the added benefit also of doing that reduction of cortisol to help increase brain functioning. So we know that high cortisol and lack of sleep with inadequate nutrition or dehydration leads to memory issues. So if we want our students to thrive and learn and retain the information, we need to work against those. So in terms of increasing memory skills, teach students, once you've reduced their stress and they're getting that great hydration and movement breaks for aerobic exercise, then teach them the strategies of rehearsing information, associating information, making connections, visualizing. These are all strategies to increase memory skills. So there's certain programs out there that do great work with visualizing, but if you don't have a program, you can of course put these strategies to work too. Visualize and verbalize is a great one to walk an educator through the steps of increasing memory through visualization. So you would do something like, tell me what your kitchen looks like. I often have my students even close their eyes and really provide the detail so that all of their peers could even draw the image. And so this really creates a stronger memory that lasts longer. Another trick that you can use is we use the acronym ACE, Association, Color, Exaggeration. So just helping students to really make connections so that the color supports, for example, assist as the brain is making those associations and building in those memory functions. Another great way to increase memory skills is through active learning. So set information that you want students to memorize to rhyme or music. I can still remember learning all the capitals of the states through a song. You also really can help memory function by supporting the learning through kinesthetic, physical touch of the information. I often say to some of my graduate students, would you rather go on a cruise to Hawaii and experience it or see someone else's slides of the trip? And so hopefully that sort of reminds you as you're planning your lessons, how much can I help my students experience what I'm trying to teach them instead of just telling them?